All right, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Teresa. I'm a behavior analyst with Healthwest Autism Program, and I have a co-host with me that will help with this presentation, and I'll let her introduce herself. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm Holly Hawkins. I manage the autism program at Health West, and I have the wonderful, wonderful job of supervising Miss Teresa.
Yeah. Our presentation today is on safety for our kids who wander. So starting out, I can't think of a more fundamental instinctual feeling as keeping my son or my daughter safe. So in saying that, some safety concerns come from nature, environment, from people in the community and modern life. And, some of these concerns are foreseeable and others, stuff in life just happens. But the more prepared we can be each time, the better off our kids will be. So safety becomes part of a parent's constant goal, and one that's even more challenging and stressful for our children with autism. Now back to the nature part of the keeping your child safe. When we're talking about nature, I'm thinking of animals in our community, dogs, wild animals. I'm thinking of poison poison oak, things like that can really hurt our kids. When I'm thinking about the environment, I'm thinking about something as simple as sun exposure, protecting ourselves, wearing a mask to prevent disease or exposure, something that they have to do right now. When I'm thinking of people and community, well, that kind of says it all right there. People can be dangerous, and we want to make sure our kiddos learn some safety skills when it comes to being around people, not only strangers, but people that they know. And then modern life, I think of computers, I think of technology, I think of the iPad and the World Wide Web. There's so much out there that will influence our children, and the more that we can be on top of that, the more direct and explicit training we can do for our kiddos, the better off they're going to be. So why is that? Why are these challenges so significant in our life? Well, lots of different reasons. The first one being situational awareness and recognition of danger. So compared to their peers, individuals with autism are less likely to grasp things intuitively. It's like, when you're around some people or some places, it doesn't really feel safe. Well, our kiddos with autism don't necessarily have that same feeling. So we have to help them by teaching them working through this. And there they may have problems interpreting which situations are safe and which aren't. And compounding this, some of our kiddos are way too trusting. They don't know when to back off. For example, parents and schools teach this population to listen to authority. All kids, actually. But in some cases, in those positions of authority, these people take advantage. So we not only have to teach about positions of authority, but we have to teach good touch, bad touch, and how to let somebody know that we're in trouble. And that we do that through communicating. And it's not always verbal, because some of our kiddos don't have the ability to verbally speak or vocally speak. The next one is a lot of our kids have sensory issues, and this definitely leads to issues with elopement and wandering too. So sensory processing challenges can be with individuals with autism, and the kids can be unsafe, and they don't even know that they're unsafe. So a child who is sensitive to loud noises, in an effort to escape sensory overload, may unintentionally wander, out of the home or away from their family or caregiver during a fireworks ceremony, during a parade, any community gatherings. And they do this, and that they can get run over by a car. So they need a lot of different skills taught to keep them safe. And all this stuff can have an overload on their senses. So because of that, we have to teach them communication because that's so difficult for them. So some individuals with autism are nonverbal. They don't speak words. Others develop later than their typical peers. And there are some kids who are very verbal, and they can speak very well, but they're not able to speak in a way that lets other people know, hey, they need help, they're lost, They don't have the ability to do that. And so they're sometimes, misunderstood. Then the next issue is the fixation on objects. Kiddos have fixations with different things for lots of different reasons. I've had kids fixated on garbage trucks, bicycles, trains, trees, lots of different things. And it's really important because they can elope and go to these things that they want, looking for different things. So some children with autism develop this very narrow focus for their interests and hobbies. The fascination with trains, like I told you, we need to take extra precautions when standing next to a platform like this kiddo here is, or if you live near a train track, or if the grandmother lives near a train track, we want to take extra precautions in making sure the child doesn't wander looking for that train track. Okay, next area to consider is generalization. Generalization has to do with taking a skill, being able to use it in a lot of different contexts across a lot of different people. So due to their direct or literal thinking, children with autism have trouble applying the skills that they learn at home or school to other contexts and situations. So for example, your child may not understand or may understand not to answer the doorbell at your home, but when they go to grandma's home, they answer the doorbell, and which can lead to a danger at grandma's home. So these concerns not only affect the kiddo with autism, but it affects everybody else in the family as well. And that causes a lot of stress. And I don't know anybody who can do this alone. So what you need to get is to get a network of friends around you to support your child. There's some things you have to do to prepare for that. And when we're talking about stress, it's not just you as the parent, but the siblings often have to take on some of the responsibility of helping, the burden of, I call it a burden of helping to raise their sibling, but it's tough. It's really tough, and sometimes this lasts throughout their entire life. When we have all these considerations that I just went through, what do we do first? How can we head off these problems and be proactive? So we're going to talk about safety planning cycles, and there's certain steps to do that. And the first one is understanding. And then I have in this PowerPoint, preparing, practicing, sharing, and updating. So what we're doing is we have to understand why our kid is eloping in the first place. Not because you're a bad parent. Not because you're not watching your child well enough. I mean, maybe some people don't, but things just happen. Life just happens. But understanding is the first step to each safety topic. So what about a safety topic is important for your child? How do you want him to stay safe? What does he need? What makes him unsafe in a particular situation? These steps need to be broken down and focused on the factor that impacts the child's safety. Okay, so you have to understand why your child is doing what he's doing. Why is he eloping? Okay, and then after you figure out why, then you start preparing. Okay, what does your child need to practice the safety skill? That's preparing. What resources does he need? What people need to be around when he's practicing and preparing? What skills does he need to be taught in lots of different situations, and what can be done to support him? Okay. Preparation is partly about brainstorming the needs as well as looking for ways to meet those needs. So our next step is practice. So, and we often kind of lose sight of this. We do it in schools. I've done it as a parent. I tried to teach my kiddos things and I tell them certain things, then I drop it and I just assume that they're following what I told them. Well, that's not the case. And being a parent, you just have a lot going on, you're multitasking, and we just have to remember to go back and keep practicing with our kiddo every day, sometimes several times a day. However fragile that skill is that you want your child to learn, okay? So you're practicing. You're gonna break those skills down. You're gonna teach them one at a time until the child masters each skill, and then you're gonna go on. So for example, crossing the street. If you're gonna teach your child to cross the street, you might want to wait till the child gets to the curb or take the child to the curb and say, stop at the curb. And that's the only thing you want to do, okay? And you have to teach him until he till he masters this particular step. Maybe if he does this 10 times in a row, I don't know, every child's different. Then the next step might be stop at the curb, look right, okay? And then the third step, stop at the curb, look right, look left, and so on until you get across the street. So you're breaking down that skill to little pieces. It's doable. And you're working with your child on that over and over and over again until they really conceptualize what you're teaching them. Okay, so that's practicing. Next is sharing. So you're going to share with other people, with your family, with your neighbors, anybody whom you trust and knows your child. So sharing takes safety from your home and your family out into the real world. Safety is just not an issue for you alone, like I was saying. It's an issue for everyone who could potentially be a part of your child's life and keep your child safe. You need to share information with your school teachers, administrators, adult service providers and agencies, community safety persons like police and fire department. Safety also involves letting other people know how they can support your child and you. Again, you can't do this alone. You need help all around. You need to build a network for your family. And then finally, update. Okay, so your child grows, your child changes. His thing, maybe fixation, some of the fixations are gonna change, and he's growing, and he has hormones, and his interests are gonna change. You need to change whatever you're doing with his behaviors changing for him. So some parents do this several times a year. Some parents only have to change, update a plan every year. And we're going to talk more about that in just a second here. That's just kind of an overview of each of the steps that we're going to go more into. But basically, I kind of wanted to give you a definition of wandering and elopement. I'm sure you've heard of wandering. Not everybody's heard of elopement. But basically, both of the terms are used to describe when someone leaves a safe place and they're unsupervised. Approximately 48% of children diagnosed with autism have been reported to elope, leaving the home, leaving the safe area, and being unsupervised. And half of those children have never received training on that behavior. And these are kids that need that direct, explicit training. We can't assume that they know. I've made that mistake so many times. So given the seriousness and the serious stress and consequences of wandering and elopement and how it causes, what it does to families and how it affects our community, there has been a lot of research done on this, devoted to this topic. Elopement increases the risk of death for individuals with autism at twice the rate of their peers, the general population anyway. And although wandering typically peaks around the age of 5, it continues to be a major issue throughout childhood and into adolescence for some people. So we have to constantly be training them, even though we think that, they understand. Sometimes, they're just thinking along another path. So we have to build supports for them as much as we can. Children with autism are also really drawn to water, and a lot of our drownings are with our population that has been diagnosed with autism. So it's a major concern. And, the drowning is not the only risk. We're talking about when our kids wander, they're open to victimization from other people, from drowning, like I said, from being hit by a car. It's some scary stuff. Most children who wander do so from their home, somebody else's home, from school, from stores, from mom and dad are shopping. I personally had my daughter take off in a mall. I probably shouldn't admit it to you, but it has, and I have never been more terrified in my entire life. But they do it for a lot of different reasons. In my daughter's case, she wanted to go to the this cookie store, and I wanted to go in another direction. So she got her way. She left me, and it just happens, right? But oftentimes, they're just curious. They want to see what's going on. They see something that strikes their something that they want to see and they just want to explore. Or it could be they want to avoid something, something unpleasant, such as loud noises, crowds. They're just avoiding discomfort or anxiety or other sensory triggers. And other children might be goal oriented, like I said, like my daughter, reaching or trying to reach some particular thing or place that interests them. For example, a child that loves birds may wander in an attempt to follow a particular color of a bird, you know, out in the yard. So the threat of wandering and elopement strikes incredible fear among parents, and it impacts the level of anxiety, of sleep, the ability to enjoy everyday life. And many families avoid going out into public with their child because of this. They're worried that their child's going to run away. They're worried that other people are looking at them. And, you know, we have people that don't understand our children with autism, our people with autism. They don't understand what that means. And I think the best thing we can do is just educate them and tell them what's going on. You know, my child has autism, please be patient, you know, or however you want to do that. Don't get mad. Don't get mad. It's ignorance, you know, and I don't say ignorance in a mean way. It's just not knowing. They don't know. So we're going to work on that. But when our kids don't get out into the public and they don't get to go to restaurants and they don't get to go to the zoo or to the park, you know, that's kind of isolating them from building and maintaining strong support systems. So we want to make sure that they have the opportunity to build that support just like any other kid. Okay. All right. So while this isn't a recommended course of action, there's a number of practical ways to address or reduce the risk of wandering behaviors or prevent them altogether. So you have to have a peace of mind, right? So number one is understanding why your child might be wandering. We might think we understand, but until we see what's going on on a regular basis, every time the child exhibits that behavior, we don't really know. So I'm recommending a wandering log. So like I said, as mentioned earlier, every child wanders for different reasons: escape, curiosity, goal-directed. If the reasons are unclear right now, then you might consider keeping a wandering log or writing down all the details from the wandering incident that occurs. So you're going to want to write down the series of events that preceded the elopement. What happened right before they eloped? Who was there? Were there any stimuli or any triggers present? Something maybe sensory that set them off? Was your child where was your child trying to go? You know, and just writing that down, keeping a log, looking for things that might help you answer the question of why. And once you understand the possible reasons, then you can begin to develop strategies to address this behavior. For example, if your child's goal is to escape something unpleasant, then you can teach him an alternative, an improved way to cope with the unpleasant experience. You know, if it's noises, you might want to teach him to plug his ears. You might have headphones at several places where he can grab and put on, or you might want to teach him to go to an adult for help, somebody that he trusts and you trust. Okay, back to swimming and water safety skills. Like I said before, this is a big concern when our kids are around. You know, there's water everywhere, from a little kiddie pool to buckets even. And we have to be vigilant in making sure that they understand and respect the water. So, and we know swimming is an essential skill. Kids need to learn that to help prevent water injuries and death by drowning. So start swimming lessons as early as possible and continue them as needed, not just once, maybe once every year, you know, have them go through a swimming lesson. And there are a lot of places in our community that hold them for kids with special needs as well as your neurotypical kids. So I know of YMCA, Red Cross. I know the gym that I go to has a pool and has swimming classes. And there are a lot of places in our community that do that. And they even will come to your home if you want, sometimes. Okay, now we're going to talk about the plan. Work with the professionals, therapists, and teachers in your network to support and create a behavior plan related to your child's wandering that applies to different environments. Okay, maybe one for your home, one for grandma's home. If your child goes over to your neighbor's, maybe you need one for your neighbor, one for school. And I have a list here of who to include in that. And you know, and having that plan, knowing what's going to happen, know what those expectations are, and have your child knowing what those expectations are, kind of reduces that stress because you have something laid out for you. So it reduces panic. It removes that irrational feeling when you're under stress. Like when my daughter disappeared, I was crying so much I couldn't even see. So if she was around me, I couldn't even see her. So, but if I have a plan, I stick to it, and I can feel less stress that way. And it's really great to involve your child. Let them have a buy-in to this program. They feel a part of it. They feel empowered. All family members, if your child has a therapist, definitely the teachers. Kids wander from schools, and other areas we're going to talk more about. Okay, practice communicating contact information. I've got a list of things here, but there are many ways your child can practice communicating his or her name or contact information. Having him or her memorize a parent's primary phone number so that you can be contacted by the police or whoever finds him. Among the first questions police ask are, where do you live and what's your phone number? So those are two things you are going to want them to remember or to memorize, and to be able to, when they're asked, to give that information. There's lots of ways to give information, even for nonverbal kids. Your child should know the answers, and you can help him by practicing that contact information with other people, friends, acquaintances. Set up a contrived situation. Tell the grandmas and grandpas and your neighbors, hey, what's your telephone number, that kind of thing, and let them work with your child too. That's great experience. For some nonverbal children, communicating information is as basic as where they live or how to reach their parent. It might not be realistic. So if your child struggles to do so, an alternative might be for him to have an ID card so that they can show law enforcement officials when necessary. And there are dozens and dozens of examples. I just pulled this one offline, and you can see you can put your child's picture right here and give the information. And on the back of the card, you could put things on that may be triggers for your child, extra information that you would want somebody to know about your child if they're bringing them back to you. Well, you want them to bring them back to you, but things that they might be helpful for them. So get as much information on there without sharing too much. And I'm going to give more examples later on too. But in addition to verbally reciting or giving an ID card containing contact information, there are many other alternative ID options out there. Oop, first, I just added this too before I go on to the alternatives. This is a little card one kiddo had, and I thought it was kind of cool. I'll just paraphrase it real quick. It just identifies him as being a child who has a disability and asking for help, giving his name, that he has autism, that he's lost, and it talks about his behaviors, what might happen. This doesn't mean he's going to hurt anybody, but to please help him. And then at the bottom, it's how to contact his mom, his dad, or whoever. So I thought that was pretty cool. And it's a card that, a boy can put in his pocket. You can even stitch it in there, I guess, and have him flip it out of his pocket, or be very creative. But this next slide will show some other ways that we can help our kiddos communicate to others. For nonverbal kids, even verbal kids, you could do this, because even our verbal kids have difficulty with communicating vital information. So we know we've seen a lot of medical ID bracelets and necklaces, clothing labels, shoe tags like this one right here. I thought those were kind of cute. But temporary tattoos. Now, I didn't know about those until recently, but I guess they're really pretty common right now. At first I thought temporary tattoos, but there are a lot of kiddos out there that don't like necklaces. They have a sensory issue. They don't like them rubbing against their skin. So you might want to consider a tattoo. And, you know, I would call around and find out who could do this for you. And it's temporary. So when the child is able to communicate in a different way, you may not need those anymore. But that's, I thought, a pretty creative way. And this is times where we have to be creative. In addition to, let's see here, I'm sorry, I'm going on to the next slide. Oh, I went over tracking options, GPS. There's many different methods of using lots of different GPS what am I trying to think? GPS gadgets, but they're expensive. I've had a couple kiddos that I've worked with that have worn them on their belt or put in the pocket, and they're pretty cool, and the parents can tell exactly where they are, but they're very expensive. Some of them aren't very expensive. The prices are coming down, but if you're going to look into that, I would really do a lot of research, finding out or looking and reading at other parents' feedback from them and finding out which ones work and which ones really aren't so great. Sometimes it's just not best to do the cheap one. I found that out the hard way. But it doesn't matter which one you get, nothing is 100% effective. So keep that in mind too. But when you're thinking about what things you need to do to keep your child safe, you got to think, okay, will your child wear it? Like ID bracelets or a tracking device, or will they remove it right away and then you'll never find it again? Different families have different tracking needs and need to consider if a tracking device is right for them. So you have to think, okay, is the tracking device removable? Is it waterproof? Does it connect directly to law enforcement? Does it have a long battery life? Does it connect to your cell phone? Also consider the type of technology used in the tracking device, like GPS versus radio frequency devices. I don't have a lot of understanding about that, but that's one of the reasons we need to really research it and find out more information on it. The bottom of the screen here, you'll see that safety.com. That's a great site with lots of different resources for you to look at. And since the expenses there, from what I've read, funding could be available to families for associated costs with this. And there are some police departments that you can call, and they get state and federal funding program monies to help families with children with special needs for things just like this. So call around, and we'll figure out what your needs are first, then call around to see who can help you with that. Okay. And as far as, you know, I talked about the GPS and those ID bracelets and stuff, but think about alarms and securing your home. Those are expensive too. And you could probably work with the police department for funding about this too. And the school, find out what the school is going to do about keeping your child safe. An alarm or home security system may be something to consider if your child routinely wanders away from your home. Different types that are available depending on your specific needs and your budget. Again, check it out really thoroughly, because some of it is a waste of time or a waste of money. Something real easy, teach your child to stay with you in public. We can't always hold their hands and be with them, especially as they grow older. They're going to tug away. Instead of having to deal with those behaviors out front, you know, teach them now while they're young, and it gets easier, hopefully, as they get older, and you're less likely to be able to hold their hand. And besides, you want to teach them to be as independent as possible too. So start out with, you know, holding their hand, then teach them to stay next to your side from 6 to 12 inches, and then maybe a foot or two, whatever's safe for them, for the developmental or the cognitive abilities at the time. And just work on from there, growing their ability to be independent while keeping them safe. And teach them the words go, walk, stop, wait. Where I work, we teach a great program called Stop and Wait. And that means when our child starts wandering off, we say stop and wait, and the child stops and waits for us, and we get back together. And it's perfect, and it really, really works. And this is basically what it is, teaching those words, what they mean, and practice it every day, several times a day, in the home, in the yard, in the community, in all different settings, okay? It's important to maintain your child's safety with those, with that. And while doing this, use positive reinforcement, use visuals, and practice. So positive reinforcement is just, great job, you asked for help, or great job, you held my hand when we XYZ, whatever they're doing right, make sure you're reinforcing that so they want to keep pleasing you, and you can let them know that they're doing the right thing. Of course, all of this is not going to help in every situation, right? It certainly helps when walking through a store and a parking lot. Keep them safe. And get to know the law enforcement in your area. Go up there to the police department, to the fire department. I've done this with my kids. Introduce your child to them. Introduce yourself to them. Let them know your child has a disability, or maybe you have other children that aren't disabled. You still want them to know who they are and who you are. I have found the more that I'm in the community and meet these people, that they really want to help. That's why they do what they do. And that's why they get paid for it, because they want to help our community and they want to reach out to you and know what's going on. They can better help in tough situations. Okay. For example, things that you might want to share is like if your child is aversive to sound, you might tell them that, and tell them that he may act out and might start crying or might start hitting you. It doesn't mean that he's going to hurt you. You know, tell them those kind of things so they take your child seriously and do whatever that they can to help. And practice with your child what to do when they get lost. Develop an easy to remember, strategies in case this happens. And it might be as easy as stay where you are. Don't move. Just stay there. Regardless of the strategy, it's important to practice it over and over again. And I know I sound like a broken record, but it's true. You got to keep practicing. If your child has a smartphone, you can use free apps like Find My Friends. I think it was it. Yeah, Find My Friends and this thing, and put it on their phone. A lot of our kiddos, they love their phones and they keep it on them all the time. They don't want to take it off, but it's a great app to share when they're lost, to give caregivers or community personnel a way to contact you. And then have an emergency plan located in several places in your home, at grandma's home, wherever the child goes. Have one for the school, develop it. If your child has an IEP, build it into the IEP, whatever it takes to keep your child safe. And always share them with key persons in your safety network. I'd have everybody in my family know. I'd have my neighbors know. It doesn't hurt to collaborate with everybody around you. And putting all this together, all these things, is how we build a safety network, okay? So kind of reiterating everything together, I've got 5 tips for success. If a child gets lost or wanders away, call 911 immediately, okay? Implement your safety plan to augment their efforts, but don't begin with the safety plan. You begin by calling 911 and then you use your safety plan. Teach your child the essential skills that can help them further avoid danger. Practice what to do in case he gets lost, and make sure he's able in some way to communicate his contact information, whether it's vocally, using PECs, using those information cards. Needs something, the child needs something. So everything you can do in your home to secure the environment is key, and keeping a watchful eye on your child. I know I'm cleaning house all the time, and we'll sit them down, put toys around. I remember doing this, and it could go on for several minutes, and I'm not seeing my kiddos. I'm listening, but then when I don't hear anything, that's when I go running around. But our kiddos that elope, we can't afford to not have eyes on them all the time. And again, you can't do this alone. You need help. Make a network. So make your home a secure a secure place, and install locks, alarms, consider purchasing a tracking device. Make sure people outside the family, like neighbors, school staff, first responders, know about your child's wandering tendencies before something happens. And you know, life happens and your child may get out. You want to make sure that they have every access to every skill necessary to be as safe as possible. Okay, so keep that wandering log that accounts for each incident in detail. Write down what happens before, during, after. While collecting data in the log, all steps should be taken to reduce your child's wandering behaviors and opportunities, and share these notes and plans with your child's network. So it's the teachers, it's the neighbors, it's the family, okay? And I've got something I want to share that a parent wrote in. It's just a little blurb, and I think you might appreciate it. If you have a child that elopes and you're struggling with this and you feel alone, I think you're going to appreciate hearing this, okay? So the parent says, we fenced in our yard and sent a letter to everyone who lives on our street, letting them know that our 4-year-old son is nonverbal and has autism. We included a picture of him as well and asked neighbors to please gently guide our son back home in case he ever gets out again. Every year we send another short note with an updated photo to our neighbors, as well as the local police department. We want them to know that he has autism, is nonverbal, and may not respond to his name. So you're not alone. There are people that go through this with you. Every situation is different, but the better prepared you can get and the better network you can get around you, you're going to see a lot of stress lifted. Okay. So the next part, I'm giving an example plan for a parent. So everything I went over, I talk about understand why your child does what he does. Do a wandering log, figure out that why, and then address it. So here I've got an example that I put together. So Craig loves fire trucks, and the local fire station is just a few blocks away from his house. And ever since Craig learned to open the front door, he often left to see the trucks that were sleeping in the fire station nearby. His parents, Ed and Terry, tried different door locks, but eventually he'd figure them out and got outside again, walking in the direction of the fire station. Craig's wandering tendencies had gotten so severe that Ed and Terry would often discover in the middle of the night that he was trying to leave the house or that he left the house, okay? So they know the why, right? So now they have to understand what they're going to do about it. So Ed and Terry knew Craig was wandering away because of his curiosity and interest in the fire trucks. But they also wanted to understand if there were particular times when Craig would wander. They kept a wandering log for a week and noticed that often Craig became more inclined to wander after hearing a siren outside. So this is interesting because he doesn't wander every single night. They've got it down to him wandering just when he hears a siren. So the parents can be more vigilant at that time. But if they weren't taking notes on this in their log, they wouldn't necessarily know this. So they understand what's going on, and so now they need to prepare a plan. After they prepare a plan, they need to practice the plan. Remember, practice, practice, practice. And then they need to share the plan with their neighbors and community people and emergency people. And then they need to constantly update their plan over time with pictures, letting people know about their interests and how to handle certain things. I won't go through and explain that all over again, but I'll paraphrase each one. So the preparing, like I said, they know why, but what they did about it for preparing is they posted stop signs at each door in the household, and they installed a simple house alarm that would alert them if the door opened. And they worked with Craig's therapist on appropriate behaviors and on social stories to help them through that. And if you don't know what social stories are, come back, I think the 26th. We're going to go over social stories. Okay, so then they practiced with Craig. They took him and worked him through, worked over the plan with them. So they worked with the therapist. They practiced each time they heard a siren. When he stopped at the door, he would receive positive reinforcement. When your kiddo stops at the door, make sure you're letting them know that you're very happy with that and redirect him. So after they practice it, then they're going to share the plan with everybody around them. Share with grandma and grandpa, share with your neighbors, share with brothers and sisters and aunts and uncles, and then make sure it's updated as reasonable as your child, his wandering tendencies change as well. Okay. And so I go through these, but I already paraphrased all of them for you. So in conclusion, I have lay a solid foundation for the new priorities that arise as your child grows and changes. It's always changing, and we have to stay vigilant and keeping up with them, and it's hard. It takes a village. Just get as much information as you can with little trainings like this. And a lot of you, I'm sure you already know, but I think hearing it from somebody else, and sometimes you can pick up a little nuance of something and add to your plan already, and it can be very helpful and uplifting. I kind of like this poster at the bottom too, because all kids need this stuff: confidence, they need self-respect, they need motivation, self-esteem, and pride, neurotypical or not. And I want to keep my eye on this when I think about working with all my kiddos every day. So it's something for you. And then I got all my information actually from lots of different sources here. And I'm going to keep this page and also the rest of my presentation that I didn't share with you. I just kind of talked and talked and talked. If you want any information, please let me know. I'd be happy to share that with you. All right, Holly, do you have anything?
No, that was pretty awesome, Teresa. I did get a couple of email addresses, so we'll send out the presentation, the PowerPoint after this is over, and get it
Okay,
uploaded.
that sounds good.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, everybody. This has really been a privilege for me, and I was a little nervous because this technology thing, but I'm happy to be here. And if you have any ideas of trainings that things that you're struggling with and you'd like us to work on, please let us know that too, because we really want to help and be part of, the answer. Bye.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
You got this, Holly?
Yep, I got it.
Okay.
Let me see.